Hello there folks and welcome to the stream. My name is Mike D'Angelo, aka That Tellest Guy, and I am joined by my lovely co-host Rihanna.
Hello!
Hello! And we also got Luna on the floor. I almost ran her over with my chair. That would have been sad. But I'm thoroughly tucked into my space here at my desk. My knee is locking up on me, so that's a fun one.
Yeah, you're pretty squished.
I am pretty squished. So today we are back after, I gotta say, at least 3 weeks of not doing Talking Tellests for various reasons. Either work was super busy, we couldn't get the air conditioner to work up here because it was super hot, and we didn't have the setup downstairs yet. I fell asleep from eating too much. Just a variety of things. But today we are back. We are going to be talking about a fun topic. Specifically, we're going to be talking about the romances of Tellest. So we got a few individuals to talk to you about.
That curtain swoosh was mighty impressive.
I mean, it used to be a little bit more impressive because it used to be like tucked away in like PowerPoint,
right.
But now it's like right there in transitions. Like you can find it very easily.
Still very pretty.
So these are a couple of our love-struck individuals. Some of them maybe not really, but Rihanna will infer her own opinions and ship people that. So we do that for Rihanna. It makes her happy.
I'm a fangirl.
So what we're going to do is start with some of our more popular shippings. So let's go to Luca and Alicia, who technically, as we've mentioned a couple times on this channel, there's different timelines in the Tellest universe. And the one that we're on right now, there was probably a relationship between Luca and Alicia, but not in the way that it was in the previous, like the legacy timeline that we've played in. They were the main couple in that book series, and then over the course of that series, kind of split up and fell apart. Their love was not meant to be.
They look like pogs.
They do look like
pogs.
pogs.
Sorry, showing my age.
Pogs? What the pog? I'm gonna whip out my super special slammer. It's got a hologram.
That was for the rich kids.
I had a holographic slammer.
I
was a rich kid.
You were a rich kid.
I grew up so broke, and it got broker as I grew up because my parents split up. But you know what that meant? Twice the pogs.
That's true.
So, in the original timeline, Luca and Alicia met when they were children first. Time kind of separated them, and then necessity drove Luca, Chaos at the time, to go back to Adelatha, where he happened upon her. She's always got like this ruby necklace thing that she wears, and that was given to her by Luca when he was a kid, and that was kind of like the thing that brought them back together in a way.
I think the initial iteration of their romance was like fairly like Boy Scout and Princess, very, very cookie cutter, and then things got a little more dramatic. And
maybe we can explain how. So, in the second book, for various reasons, geographically and otherwise, there was some distance put between our characters. Alicia, I think, was injured, so she had to be taken out of the grouping to some extent. And Lila was actually sent to assassinate Luca. She was going to use her feminine wiles to lure him into her spider's web.
Mm-hmm. But then he used his masculine wiles accidentally, and she just sort of grew to like him.
Yeah, I have a lovely musk, Luca would say. And funny enough, so like Luca is very much a straw man for me, and Rihanna's maiden name was Brennan, and Lila was written before I met Rihanna, which is weird, a very strange kind of situation.
And Lila's honestly like one of my favorite characters in the book because she's like she's just a I don't know if I'm allowed to say this on your channel, but badass. If I pronounce it like that, is that better?
I think badass is okay. It's not meant to be an insult or anything like that.
But she just is a very cool fighter human in a world of like superheroes with like a bunch of magical stuff. And
yeah, she just exists as a competent, skilled warrior.
Right.
To some extent, like putting Luca to shame, because Luca definitely relied on Chaos, I should say,
right.
relied on a lot of his equipment, like to do like the magic.
Right.
Helped kind
and
of.
She just used pure skill.
Pure skill.
But that also kind
swords, archery, like.
Yeah, and the not like animosity, but like their enemies to lava's story is just very interesting to me, like as a premise.
It is a trope that people like.
It's a trope that people like, and it also allows for like really fun dialogue, because you can only be like, I mean, even you and I married and together 13 years, we're not like, I love you so much. We're like, yeesh. Like you have to make it fun.
Yeah, we purposely fight. Sometimes accidentally.
Oh my god.
But yeah, I think there's definitely some interesting kind of perspectives. Now, they didn't really have a lot of time to foster that relationship, because we only had 3 books in the Legacy timeline, and Lila was only present for 2 of them. So we didn't have an opportunity there, but we've obviously thought a lot about the new timeline. We've thought about ways to bring them back, because a lot of things do not progress the same way.
Right.
At the time when Luca was with Alicia in the Legacy stuff, Lila stepped in. In the new timeline, Luca wouldn't be with Alicia.
Right.
So we've talked about ways to introduce them, and I have the story that brings them together for the first time. Does that mean that they immediately, kindle a romance similar to the way that they did in As Darkness Falls? Probably not. But I think part of the way that I envision the timeline, and I don't think you've never seen it, but the final season of Lost, how like it was like the sideways stories, and it was still about like finding ways to bring the characters together, even though it was like a new reality, so to speak. And that's kind of like the premise of this kind of thing.
Yeah.
So on the other side of this love parallelogram at this point, we have Nestor Eulis, who is a mercenary from Viscosa? Is that what it is? Viscosa? Is Viscosa the main capital? My brain.
I don't remember.
My brain. I think it's Viscosa. He comes from the capital of Raleigh, and the funny thing about it is he and Lila are both mercenaries.
Right.
So.
Well, she's like more of an assassino.
Yeah, I mean, and she's kind of she was meant to be like a commander in an army. Like she was at one point like helping to drive forward like the Savion military, and they decided to use her in that respect instead. Nestor is a little bit harsh, but I think the thing that works for him is he's so well regarded in the circles that he comes from that he's a little bit more like he comes from a little bit more of a noble family. Luca's more of a farm boy, like he's a peasant, so like it's a clear lopsided relationship between him and Alicia, whereas Alicia and Nestor kind of makes more sense. And it's a proximity thing. Luca ends up leaving because he's got quests that he needs to do, and Nestor ends up in Adelatha while Alicia's injured.
I know they're a little bit older than this, but I still feel very much like it's like Homecoming King and Queen, but actually fell for like the bad boy and the bad girl.
Right, absolutely.
The fringe people.
When we originally wrote it, I think the stuff had them at like 17 years old, because when I first started writing, I was 17 years old. There's definitely been a sizable time gap in the new timeline as well. So like the timeline switch happened, and we've gone forward a few years, so you definitely have like a new aspect of things.
I also know that like young adult fan fiction, or not fan fiction, young adult fiction, usually puts people in like that 17 to like 19 category, and now that we're like older, it's so baby. They're so tiny.
But you know what? At the same time, like there's that perspective that we've always talked about, where like we're still that as well. Like, our bodies are older, but, like, nobody's brain really, like...
Well, not only that, but, like, they don't write books for people that are in, like, their mid-30s, because at this point, even, like, you've already been beaten down. Like, oh, and a quest lies before you. Nah.
If that quest doesn't take me to my couch.
Right.
Well, so let's add another node to this relationship. We've got Seeger Orion, who is madly in love with Lila in the Legacy timeline. Again, who knows in the new timeline, but it's very unrequited. Lila could care less about him. He doesn't really know how to speak his feelings to truth anyway, so it's uncomfortable. It's like,
you're good.
No, it's even worse. It's like an uncomfortable, like, you belong to me kind of relationship. Because at least the Seeger of the Legacy timeline was not a nice person. We try to paint a little bit more shades of gray in the new timeline, but yeah, he was very much like
full of red flags.
Yeah. Even though he's wearing all this blue.
Uh-huh.
All right, so we're gonna move on to another relationship. How about you start us off with David and Zoe?
They're adorable. So David is a big... Is he a paladin kind of guy?
Yeah. So in the original timeline, he was a gladiator.
Okay.
And now he's a paladin in the new timeline.
Right.
He's like he ended up kind of, because of events that happened in the new timeline where Alicia was under attack in their inn while she was looking for Luca. In the original timeline, his father was injured in the war and he couldn't ambulate anymore. He had like an amputated leg and couldn't save Alicia. And when the Centurion, the inn, burned down, the dad burned down with him. In the new timeline, because the gods are forgotten, basically, the power that Nerat would have bestowed upon the Black Lennian army wasn't present, so Peyton didn't end up getting injured. So he was there to protect and save Alicia, and because of that, he kind of got hero status. They basically said, "Oh, thanks for the follow, Hazel Luna. Hello there. We are doing very well, thank you. Just chatting up our book series."
Yeah, and I don't remember if this is how you wrote them, but I just imagine Zoe has her dagger. She's
she's got size. She's kind of got like the
spry
a little bit Electra, a little bit Raphael from the Ninja Turtles.
But I imagine David as like this huge hulking figure, and she's like this little bubbly like.
Yes, she's this mousy, cute little thing. The so David is like this superstar in the world of Tellest at this point. Let's see. Stream seems interesting. That's why I stopped by and followed. I appreciate it. We do on Mondays we do Talking Tellests, which is when we talk about the book series a little bit. I think we're on to episode like 38 or 39 or something. Specifically, we're talking about the romances in the book series that we write, and yeah, it's fun to go into like these details a little bit more. So I thank you for dropping by. Mm-hmm. So while David's like super popular because of like the hero status that his dad got for saving Alicia, Zoe is a second generation hero. Her dad was one of the Knights of Virtue who helped the founders of the city end up staving off like the Mad King Roark in Black Lane years before, and that was why Adelatha was allowed to be, because they basically like stopped a world-ending cataclysm.
Right.
So,
and this is just a very cute romance in general, because I feel like it's like a Grumpy Sunshine kind of thing within like within the city walls, and like it's one of those, I would call it non-dramatic romances in a way that you're just rooting for them.
Right. I thank you for following me there as well. If you get a chance, yeah, absolutely. I don't stream games too much just because I feel like there hasn't been like any like ones that have drawn me in lately, but I do. Half of the time that I spend that's free is playing like goofy casual games or something like that. But I am looking for like the next big exciting one to come out.
Man, I don't think, is there anyone this year that's coming out? Any new games?
I mean, there's like I always have my eye on like Game Pass games and stuff like that. I think I'm interested in Avowed, but I don't remember if that's coming out this year or not. That's the Obsidian one that's kind of like Skyrim.
I'll just keep looking for my Disney Dreamlight Valley updates.
That and Pal World, and she's back to playing Fallout right now.
I do my cozy games, and I consider Fallout a cozy game when you use a bunch of mods.
I agree. So it depends. Sometimes I'll stream on the Xbox. It's just a little less comfortable. And then I have like one of the Elgato streaming cards, so I'll do that with my Switch and my PlayStation upstairs in my office. And then every now and then, like, I'll use my Steam Deck to do the same thing. Like, I can stream through the Elgato card through the Stream Deck. My computer is not strong enough to play most games. My brother and I were trying to play Hunt Showdown at one point, that kind of stuff. Yeah, I can follow you back. I'll do that off stream just because we are talking about this stuff, but I'll remember to do that follow then later. All right, so we're going to switch gears back to this. So David and Zoe meet just by happenstance because after the first attack in the Legacy timeline on Adelatha, he ends up in the Spirit River and ends up just completely drenched, probably dead, and then she kind of fishes him out of the river and like nurses him back to health. So another kind of tropey relationship, because you definitely have the previous like enemies to friends to lovers trope, and then in this one you have the nursed back to health trope. And
again, he's a big warrior dude. Thank you for taking care of me.
Thank you for taking care of me. It's very special of you. So we'll move on to the next one. So I think, Brianna, you might have given up on As Darkness Falls based on certain things.
Events that done made me angry.
So you may not have ever met Christopher and Iris, but Christopher, well, you know Christopher, but Iris I don't think that you would have ever met. But Christopher is obviously our resident, at least in the Legacy series. He is the resident undead hunter, and they have needs of his skills in Foster Villa because there are vampires about, and they're trying to throw together like this, again, cataclysmic event that basically blocks out the sun with dark clouds and everything like that.
Is he an undead hunter or a hunter of the undead?
The latter.
Okay,
yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I from the art, he kind of looked
like he could have been undead.
Yeah, I got a little confused.
So, and things have definitely changed because the foundational element of why he became a hunter of the undead in the original series was the person who basically ruined his life was Juramentado the Necromancer. But Juramentado the Necromancer doesn't need to be evil in this timeline because, again, Narat, the god of war, is not in his ear telling him things. So our Juramentado in the new timeline is actually a little bit more shades of gray, which is interesting because we're turning a lot of our bad characters potentially good.
Right.
So we need to come up with new villains and things like that, and that leads to very fun team ups and things like that.
That's true, but your good guys can still be bad acting. Like how life is.
Yeah, absolutely. And then
different.
Iris is the Sultan's daughter from Foster Villa, and she kind of has a thing for Christopher. But the problem is the bad guy in his part of that story is her brother, and it's difficult because she doesn't know that. Like,
Gotcha.
it's a whole thing.
Okay.
So,
does she have blue hair?
Yeah, you gotta have blue hair.
Gotta have blue hair.
She's got white hair.
Okay.
Basically, what happened was in the place that she lives at, surrounding the city is this big desert where there's things called death winds. And for whatever reason, the atmosphere is very dangerous. She ended up being born like on her way back to the city, and because of that, she ended up, not getting any pigment in her hair. And she's also got violet eyes, so she's almost like albino looking.
Like a Daenerys Targaryen, a bit.
A little bit of that, maybe a little bit of UA from Avatar.
Mm-hmm.
So, any woozle. This was another relationship that we fostered in Foster Villa, in As Darkness Falls, which I don't think that you got to see firsthand. We talked about it. You hated it because you didn't like the idea of these two characters together at first, I don't think.
I didn't?
No.
I like Hoagland and her together.
Yeah, but at the time, I think it bothered you because you hadn't read it yourself, so it was like out of the blue to you.
Well, not only that, but I think that Hoagland, maybe my initial impression of him versus like the end result were a little bit different. Stop it! Do not chase the ice cream man. Oh my god!
It's important for me to acknowledge it
so much when you hear the ice cream music.
Ice cream man. It's a simpler time. So yeah, Adelia and Hoagland, they were younger characters for sure. You know, like they were like the youngest two of the characters, so it was a little bit weird when you were reading it and everything like that. And then on top of that, you're introduced later in the new timeline to an Adelia that's different, who falls in love with her cat. So, completely different situation.
She flirts with her cat. That's different.
When he's a boy.
When he's a boy.
So, as of the new timeline, we don't have anyone for Adelia or Hoagland. They have not. Well, they would have met, but I don't think that they're not destined to be together the way that they were in that time. That doesn't mean that things can't change, but at least now that was broken up. We've got some other Tales of Tellest characters here to talk about. We have Vanatharin and Maribek, who they both first shared pages in the book Awake. Vanatharin and Maribek have another kind of tropey relationship, patient and their therapist.
Yeah, basically.
So, Vanatharin is suffering from something called the Dream Plague, which is like one of the deadliest diseases that elves can face. It doesn't usually happen, it doesn't ever happen to any of the other races. Because elves are so long-lived, they need more things that can take them out. And the Dream Plague is basically a manifestation of guilt, or some other kind of like self-doubt or things like that. And Vanatharin had a lot of guilt to work through, and Maribek is suited in such a way to deal with those kind of things with the elves because he is a dream walker. So he has the ability to go into people's dreams and help them.
He prescribed her some vitamin D.
Oh, God.
For dreams.
For dreams. Not that other thing. So the other tricky thing is when Maribek meets Vanatharin, some people know that he's not an elf. He presents as an elf at the time because there's a lot of problems potentially with a human trying to help out an elf with something as important as the Dream Plague. While she's under the impression that he's an elf, falls in love with him and then is completely flabbergasted and bothered when she finds out that he's been hiding that part of him and that he's actually a human.
Elf face is not good in any culture.
The other important thing is Maribek, despite being a human, is very long-lived as well. So it's kind of like our Aragorn.
And
Arwen.
Yeah.
Like, I'm glad that I wasn't the only one with, like, the brain fart.
I was gonna say Aerosmith's daughter.
Liv Tyler? Yeah, Liv Tyler. You know, Aragorn and Liv.
Aragorn and
as Tolkien wrote it.
The daughter.
There's another character who's kind of in the periphery of this relationship, and that's Faradorn, the elf that we introduce in Arise. But we kind of that hasn't really bloomed, and I don't know that blossomed and bloomed. So I don't know if it will go anywhere or anything like that. I just realized we've been talking about this stuff for 25 minutes. It's been a long time. We're going to take a quick break because we have to show off our Quantum Quest stuff, and let me make sure that I am showing that part of the stream the right way. Give me 1 second. I am in the right place. Woohoo! All right, we're going to go to that, and then we're going to come back and briefly show a couple of our sponsors. Now that our Twitch channel has reached affiliate status, we can start to do some really cool things. One of them is inviting you to play our tabletop dungeon diving game, Quantum Quest. Using our channel points, called Quest Coins, you can queue up for one of our forthcoming Tabletop Thursday games. In addition, as we amass more followers, we'll continue to add new ways for you to use your Quest Coins. Join us and see if you can escape the living dungeon. And now, a word from our sponsors. Stitching threads of darkness and light into one great story, Liam Lombard makes a beautiful tapestry of his tale, The Calling, the first book in the Faram's Mysteries series. A wonderful debut, this book presents well on all fronts, whether you're looking for great frenetic action sequences or cooler, introspective moments with rich detail and attractive prose. It all takes place in a captivating land which is falling to rotten ruin, making for an interesting backdrop that's unlike what many have experienced. Held up by a pair of catching characters, there is a lot to appreciate in Lombard's first release. If that has caught your attention, be sure to check out our upcoming promotion for Liam Lombard's book, The Calling, at Tellest.com. Take elements of a treasure-hunting road trip, foreboding dark magic, and swashbuckling adventures on the high seas, and you've got a recipe for David Smith's debut historical fantasy, Raise the Flag. With prose that will immerse readers and an alternate history of pirate escapades ripe for exploring, this book is captivating throughout. A great cast of characters and enjoyable settings round out the components necessary to make this an addicting read. And though it's presented... We were goofing off, and I wasn't paying attention, so that sponsorship ran a little longer than it needed to. All right, let's move on from Vanathren and Maravek.
Be very careful of your chair. Her foot's under you.
You know what's an interesting thing to talk about with Vanathren and Maravek? She's going after somebody who has, well, you know what? He had a family. We'll say that. He had a family. Home wrecker. All right, this one's special for Rhianna. I'm letting her talk about this one and the other special one that she specifically requested that I put together.
Yeah,
You're running this show.
This is entirely unofficial, but in April's Fools, these two characters, to me, have the best bromance. It kind of reminds me of, like, James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender in, like, the X-Men early class, whatever
First
it's called.
class.
Yeah, first class.
Early class.
But, like, there's such a dynamic here, and I absolutely love it. So Bixby is our character who essentially cannot die. Like, he's a immortal...
Oh, he can die.
Well, I'm sorry, yes. He can die a lot. That's his superpower. He basically just keeps dying and keeps popping back up, but his previous body is still there. So kind of Kenny from South Park if he was a wizard.
A little bit of Deadpool in there.
And a little bit of Deadpool.
The color scheme is supposed to be a little Deadpool-esque.
Right. And because of that, he has, like, a very, like, devil-may-care personality. Like, nothing really bothers him. Like, everything's sort of like a, well, guess I'll die now kind of a situation. And then, yeah, you got cleared up. Like, whatever. He's a little comic reliefy. And then Frederick is just very stoic of a man. Like, he's a man's man. He's very, like, I mean, he's a good man, I would say, through and through. Like, very honorable and things like that. And just very, like, I have a job to do, I'm going to do my job. And Bixby very much challenges that notion throughout the book, and I just love their dynamic. Again, fangirly, ship the crap out of them. Probably not in, like, a they're going to go live happily ever after kind of thing, but I can just see them being so excited to have, like, a camping trip every year.
I think, like, there's obviously, like, some need that Frederick has, like, the driving force of his story in April's Fools is I need to get, you know, my family back, and the thought that I have in my head is that, like, there's not a world that he can live in where, like, even once he gets his family back, that a part of him doesn't consider Bixby a part of that family now.
Right.
And a big portion of April's Fools is found family as well.
Right.
So I think it's important that way.
Yeah, but he'll look at it from, like, a brotherly lens, and I'm like, they wanna
bow chicka bow wow.
But I love their relationship just in general. I think that they're the dialogue between them throughout the book and, like, the way that they kind of interact is just awesome.
Very cute.
Yeah.
And then we figured, since we were already talking about the April's Fools crew, we would talk about Maria and Nellie, who are the actual couple of the book.
The actual couple, yeah.
So their relationship is kind of a cute and tragic one in that Nellie can't really... She's got a lot of self-doubt self-confidence issues because her power that she can't control causes her to basically literally hurt herself. And Nellie's whole thing is she's the ointment.
Yeah.
You
said Nellie at first. You meant
Oh, I'm sorry. Maria is the one who can hurt herself with
right.
fire. Nellie is the one who basically has kind of like mantis-y powers, where she can like control people's emotional states. So she can't actually heal Mariah's wounds or anything.
She can ease the pain associated with it, and as well as like quell the anxiety. So basically, like their interaction is that they can, like, she basically supports Mariah in a way that allows Mariah to use her power to like its fullest extent.
Yep.
So like, and she uses that power to protect her on like multiple occasions.
Yeah, it's a very almost like human symbiotic
right.
relationship in a very interesting way.
She's an adorable little barnacle. Okay, this is another one that I wanted. So in the original books, basically, Dirk is the companion of Luca / Chaos. He's a werewolf, but not in the context of like he turns into a werewolf. He's just a wolf.
He doesn't have the human part of the equation.
Right.
He can change from a regular wolf
to a
bipedal werewolf.
An anthropomorphized
which
wolf.
It's kind of like a weird prophecy amongst his people that makes him like really important.
Right. And then Kayanani is a Kaja of the... What's the oasis?
Kahara. The Kahara Desert.
Yeah, the Kahara Desert. She's a dragon speaker. She's a, pretty... I would say they're... boop. I would say they're both fairly, like, skilled warriors in their own ways, obviously, but in this new timeline, it is my demand, if they don't have like a full-fledged romance, you at least have to have a little bit of like literally cat and dog fighting to the point of like, I like you.
I can deal with you as a friend.
Right, exactly.
Now, Dirk has never had his own story, but we've also talked about like giving him like in this new timeline. Like we really want to try and see if we can get like everybody to shine a little bit. And we've talked about having a story with him and Azura and a lunar dragon. Right. So that would be really fun.
The lunar dragon would tie in the dragon.
Right. It would help
really well.
Yeah, it would help to have like a kind of Venn diagram of, oh, you have a dragon companion, I had a dragon companion as well. Yep. And so it was.
And so it was.
There's another one that you can speak
That's
to.
That's another one. So I made these characters for it. It was originally April Fool's, and then it became a Halloween story.
Yep. And then they're progressing further to the point where they're going to be in 2 more stories, but we'll start at the beginning.
So Cassandra she has no power, but she thinks she has like essentially the ability to predict the weather by utilizing her, her vast knowledge of absolutely nothing. No, she's very much a student of the earth in the way that she is like nerdy and like follows like meteorological happenings, and
she's an oopsie scholar.
She stumbles her way into things. I imagine her as very like almost Luna Lovegood-esque in the sense of like just sort of puttering through life and like really believing in the things that she thinks are truths. And then Edmund is a actual weather wizard who has the power to control the weather.
When the wizard weathers.
So he essentially does not like seeing Cassandra being mocked or ridiculed by the villagers who she's like giving these like false sort of predictions about. So he changes the weather to her predictions to like a ridiculous degree after a while. Like, oops, there's a tidal wave.
So
fine, there's a tidal wave, I guess.
So yeah, it was an April Fool's story, and how did it end up working? Do you remember?
It was a Rickroll at the end.
The whole shtick was to get to like lyrics that you created for them.
Right.
But then we, as we're ought to do, and oft to do, we ended up taking them and expanding them into. I mean, not that the April Fool story is not real. It was just a goof. But you ended up creating a Halloween story that followed up on that.
So they essentially embark on a voyage together, and a weather wizard is a pretty cool, rare thing to have for a pirate, like for a ship, basically. It ends up being a ghost story. Events occur, but at that point, they've already they're in the midst of their romance.
Yep. And as you can see, like, this art is a little bit different than the rest of the art that we have, and that's because when we originally worked on these characters in this style, we were trying to work our way towards a beat-em-up game, and Edmund and Cassandra were going to join Luca, David, Dirk, and Lila in this game. And it for whatever reason, it fell apart. Like, I think the problem was the artist that we were working with didn't have enough time to get back to us in a timely fashion or anything like that. And
we ran out of money.
Well, at the time, we had a decent amount. But it kind of, we couldn't work with the person anymore. So one of the things that I always try to do is keep art consistent. So when that kind of fell apart, we said, all right, we're going to kind of shelve this idea for a while. But the idea kind of ended up being, let's take the story that we were going to associate with that game and put it together in book fashion. And it's going to be Luca's first story in the new timeline. That's his own, so to speak, because there's another story that happens in the interim, because he already knows Edmund and Cassandra by the time the game would have happened.
Right.
And that is in the sequel to Heart of the Forest, it's Heart of the Sea. And they've already got their experience with boat travel and everything like that. So they're going to be joining a couple of our... Oh, and there was two other characters who we completely left off this this presentation.
Oh, Lucinda and...
Well, Lucinda and Gaston. So, and then...
and
Gideon.
Gideon, yeah.
Now, we don't have any art of Gideon,
right.
so... But the other one, of course, is Catelyn and Basta, who are a really cool pairing. That's the captain and the werebear.
Oh, yeah.
No.
Oh, that's stupid of you.
That's
they were cool.
stupid.
Yeah.
But I mean, we'll do a volume 2 for sure, because there's plenty to talk about. You looking at that sleepy dude?
She's blepping.
Blepping? Big time bleps?
A little tiny blep, you see it? And she's starting to kick.
Yeah, got a sleepy Luna here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, anyway, Edmund and Cassandra are going to be a big part of the Tellest universe. Brianna doesn't know this, but I have big plans for them beyond
Yay.
what she knows.
I love that. I love when, like, I'll make up a dumb character and then we end up, like...
There are no dumb characters.
Yeah, it's always, like, it's canonical eventually. Mm-hmm. And I love that.
So you'll see here, this is another kind of, like, stylistic change. And we've had them from time to time. But this is art from the Quantum Quest video game that we had a couple years back. These are characters who portrayed, they had roles in the Quantum Quest novelization, who they have romances of their own. So Benton and Faye Pavi, they have a kind of will they, won't they relationship in their own timeline, but the whole thing about Quantum Quest is it intermingles a whole bunch of timelines. It doesn't necessarily have to be the same year or anything like that. It technically doesn't have to be Tellest, it could be Earth. And basically this version, the two of these from their different timelines end up in this dungeon and tell each other how they really feel, because of the need that if I go into this next chamber, I might not be able to come out and tell you, like, how I really feel. And then they end up going separate to their own, realities again, ostensibly, at the end of whatever adventure they go on. And do they tell their significant other of that universe? Like, once you get there,
Did it happen if it didn't happen?
Mm-hmm. And then the other pairing down here is...
what happens in the alternate universe stays in the alternate universe.
And then we have Volin and Osa here. They are also characters from Quantum Quest who come from different universes. and just have a cute little relationship.
Are they both dwarves?
They're both dwarves.
No.
Yep. He's a dwarven warrior. She's a dwarven cleric. And his whole thing is trying to make sure that his friends get to safety. And he kind of... Well, we're not going to spoil things, because that novelization is young.
Relatively new, and I haven't read it yet. But
So,
I like it.
And we're going to move on, I think, to our last set of pictures. This is kind of like our catch-all for characters who have love interests that I don't have any art for, and rather than put them up against a question mark, we could have done probably
Kelvin
a lot more.
and Evensar are just, together.
And the fun thing is, like, their storylines kind of intermingle, because Kelvin's mentor is Evensar's brother, Icarus.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Forgot about that.
So Kelvin's had a couple of relationships, and we've got one that we're going to be introducing in the second Silver Serpent story. But, like, nothing is really stuck.
He also kind of had a crush on Teacher.
That's true, yeah, to some extent. And I could have put the art from Aaron up, but it was abuse. it was kind of like the same way that that Adelia had a crush on Boy Merlin. Like,
right.
It was not necessarily real.
Yeah, it's not an actionable thing. It's just like haha, let's joke and flirt about it.
Mm-hmm. And then Evensar is one of the oldest characters that we have in the Tellest universe, and his whole driving force was he was trying to stop the ritual that caused the fall, because he was in love with a human, and Eolanth ended up banished to Earth because of the ritual, and even though she's gone, like, that's where his heart is. So it's a tragic story that we'll explore a little bit more, because I have been painstakingly and slowly working on the Maelstrom over the past several years, trying to make sure that, like, I let that story ferment in the right way.
Right.
And it's coming together pretty well. Like, it's I know where I want to take it. There's routes that I don't know the journey yet.
Yeah, I think that the fun thing about the fall is that it's always our, like, go-to, like, what do you want to intro to the Tellest universe? This is, like, not necessarily your Silmarillion, because it's, like, it's a small novel, but
right.
It's, like, very much the origins of, like, kind of the lore behind it.
Yeah, it's a foundational story.
It's a foundational story. That part with Evensar and his lady made me cry. I remember that much. That was sad and beautiful.
And there was another romance in the fall that you
cried over.
Made you sad too. It was a half elf and her aging partner,
right?
Who he could see the future, and that his future sight basically kind of laid the groundwork for the ritual being enacted.
Right.
The whole idea was humanity was going to be banished, and at this point, the fall is old enough where I don't care about spoiling it, but the whole shtick was she was a half-elf, right. So the human part of her was banished, and she basically disintegrated in, like, the pool of water that they were in. You're getting sad just thinking about it.
I don't like sad stuff. I always stop the movie. I stop the movies before they get to the sad part, and then I rewatch the happy stuff.
Yeah.
But for the Maelstrom and a lot of the, like, if it's not necessarily like a cleanup of, like, a trilogy or something, I think that there's become, like, a little bit more weight to them because of how many, like, different branches we have, and now there's more, like, when it's a foundational or, like, a big event book, you have to be aware of where everything's going, so it does take a little more time.
The Maelstrom is tough because we lost so many characters. It's kind of like, it's not like a Game of Thrones where you lose, like, a character every chapter. We had all the cast in play until, like, the very last chapter, and we lost, like, a good, like, 33% of the characters. It was a cataclysm, which is what the fall is supposed to be. And the problem is the Maelstrom continues that.
Right.
Like, the Maelstrom is not like, hey, years later we're trying to, like, clean things up. It's like the next days. Right. And I've always had that problem where, like, I don't give my characters a rest. But sometimes that's what happens, like,
Like the world we live in.
The world we live in. I mean, you've got...
You don't have a break.
The Nazis were beaten, but all of a sudden the Soviets are there.
Oh my God.
You've got your problems.
Yeah.
So that is the situation that you have. The ritual ended up weakening the world, and bad stuff was able to enter the world as one of the potential, protectors of it was banished.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden you've got one of the 3 prime races gone,
right.
and magic is no longer a part of the equation either. So it makes things complicated. But anyway, we kind of
little end gamey in a way.
We lost several romance options because of those events. But
right.
I do want to make sure that we're going towards something else. So I did introduce another romance that you aren't even aware of yet, but
do I know the characters?
No, it's a character that is
okay.
completely new to the universe.
I was gonna say I don't approve of that. We gotta do a dating show or something. We gotta make sure it makes sense, man. So we've unofficially agreed, unbeknownst to you possibly, that when you're writing your stories, when there's a potential relationship, or a female character, you'll typically bounce the ideas off of me so I can give you the female and fangirl perspective of what's going to be.
It's a very valuable perspective to get.
Yeah, because you're a dude. You're a boy at the end of the day.
How dare you?
I know, but your focus is going to want to be on the events and the history and the action and stuff like that. That being said, you write dialogue fantastic.
Thank you.
You really do.
Speaking of dialogue, let's wrap this up and
have a chalky
and have
milk.
A monologue. Oh, I love a chalky milk.
Yeah, the men do want his chalky milk. That's how we express our love.
So that is it. That's the last screen that we have. So let's head over to our show closing page. I have so many scenes now. Trying to find this thing is crazy. So, folks, on the screen right now, you should see all the places that you can find Tellest out there on the internet. Tellest.com is a great first place to start because it will bring you to the other projects that we're working on. If you do want to find some of the premium sites that we have, patreon.com/Tellest is where you can go to get digital versions of our battle maps. And every Tuesday and Thursday, we add some kind of art post to Patreon so you can see some of the cool stuff that we've commissioned. Tellest.etsy.com is where you can get physical versions of our premium goods. Most notably, we have the 18 by 36 inch battle maps. We've got, I think, at this point, 58 of them up, but there's a decent amount. We've also got bookmarks, stickers, posters, Rihanna's one-of-a-kind handcrafted magic wands, and you can find more of them on tiktok.com/@weirdwitchwands. She told me that by tomorrow she's going to add 100 new videos.
No.
There's another TikTok that you should check out, and that is tiktok.com/@TalesOfTellest. Our dog, who's sleeping on the floor right now, is more popular than both of us by far. Is it up to 6.2 yet?
Just 6.1.
6.1 million. 6.2 can't be attainable. I don't know what I'm doing in this house anymore. But you should check that out. Luna is a character. The last two places that I'll bring your attention to are youtube.com/@worldoftellest and I don't know why that was on. And twitch.tv/thattellestguy. YouTube is a great place to go to if you want to check out our videos after they're knocked off the Twitch platform after the requisite amount of time. But twitch.tv/thattellestguy is the only place where you can go to chat with us live, to get and redeem quest coins, which you can also use to if you like, join a future Quantum Quest game. We play every other Thursday. Our next game is next Thursday, August 1st. We're still putting together our group of players for that time, but definitely check that out. And if you so like it, then you can queue for a new game coming up. That is going to wrap us up for now. I got a chalky milk to drink, so we're going to head out. Thank you for joining us, and we'll miss you.